I never planned to tell this story. Not because I'm ashamed, though maybe a little, but because it still aches in places no one can see. People look at me now and say, "You're strong." But strength, I've learned, sometimes means breaking so quietly that no one even hears the sound. I was 24 when I thought I had life figured out. I'd just married the man I believed was my forever. He ran a small grocery store in town. I ran our home like it was the center of the world. Mornings smelled of tea and fried bread. The children's laughter filled the tiny rooms, and sunlight made everything seem possible. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I was happy. Sometimes I wish I'd known that happiness is always on borrowed time. Because when you're in it, you never think it will leave. You think love and laughter will always find their way back home, but they don't always. One afternoon there was a knock at the door. A family friend, a couple, had just arrived from abroad. They said they needed a place to stay for a few weeks while they settled. I remember my husband's eyes lighting up. He loved company. They were confident, well-dressed, full of stories about money and opportunity. At first, I was just the polite host, serving tea, cooking dinner, trying not to feel small next to their shine. But little by little, I saw something changing in him. He started coming home late. He laughed louder when the man was around, started talking about big business, real money. And I told myself it was nothing. Because that's what good wives do, don't they? We believe, we wait. The house that once smelled of bread began to smell of silence. He stopped asking how my day was. The children stopped waiting by the door. And I started eating dinner alone more often than not. I'd tell myself, it's just a phase. He's working hard for us. But my heart knew better. I was pregnant again, our fourth child. My back ached, my feet swelled, and every night I prayed for peace to return to our home. Instead, arguments replaced laughter. He shouted at the smallest things, and sometimes he didn't come home at all. I tried to hold everything together, feeding the children, smiling when I wanted to scream, pretending nothing was wrong. But love isn't meant to be one person holding everything while the other walks away. Then one morning, before the sun rose, there was another knock at the door. This time, it wasn't a friend. It was the police. When the police came that morning, I thought there must be a mistake. 2 officers at the door, hats in their hands, polite but cold. They asked for my husband by name. He came out of the bedroom half-dressed, eyes wide, and before I could even ask what was happening, they were reading him his rights. The children woke to the sound of my crying. He tried to calm me, said it was a misunderstanding, that he'd be back by evening. But evening came and went, and for the first time in years the house was silent all night. The next day I learned the truth. That man, the friend, had used my husband's grocery store to move something illegal. Drugs. My husband had signed papers, moved money, believing he was part of a new business. Greed and trust, 2 poisons mixed together. The couple disappeared. My husband went to prison. And I was left standing in the kitchen, 4 months pregnant, surrounded by unpaid bills and frightened children. I'd never worked a day outside my home before. I didn't even know where to begin. but the fridge was empty, and children don't understand shame. So I found a job at another grocery, stacking shelves, sweeping floors, doing anything they'd let me do. The first time I held that paycheck, I cried. It wasn't much, but it meant we'd eat. At night, I'd sit at the table after the kids were asleep, staring at the worn photograph of our family, his smile frozen, mine trying too hard. I sent the older ones to my sister and my mother. I kept the youngest with me because I couldn't bear another empty room. Every few weeks I took a long bus ride to visit him. He'd sit behind the glass, thinner, angrier, ashamed. I'd talk about the children, the weather, anything but what we'd lost. He'd nod and promise he'd fix everything when he got out. I wanted to believe him. I really did. The years dragged. I learned how to survive on very little. Government stamps, hand-me-downs, prayers whispered in grocery aisles. I became invisible, one of those women you pass on the street without noticing. My hands were cracked from work, my back always sore, but somehow I kept moving. Mothers do. We don't get the luxury of breaking. Then one winter night, my youngest boy ran into the road chasing a ball. The car hit him before I could scream. He lived, but his leg broke in 2 places. The hospital bills nearly broke me. I remember sitting by his bed, holding his hand, thinking how strange it was that pain could be this quiet. That night I realized I'd stopped waiting for anyone to save me. It was just me now, me and the children, holding on to whatever pieces were left. 9 years, that's how long he was gone. 9 years of raising children who learned to stop asking when their father was coming home. 9 years of carrying bills, tears, and hope, all at once. The first few months, I counted days on a calendar. Then I stopped. Counting doesn't help when every day feels the same. I worked mornings at the grocery and cleaned offices at night. My hands stayed swollen, my back always sore. But the children grew, not because of what I could give, but because I refused to give up. Sometimes on quiet nights, I'd sit by the window and imagine him walking up the street, calling my name like before. Other nights, I'd imagine he never came back at all. Both thoughts hurt the same. Life moved on, slowly, stubbornly, until one morning, 9 years later, the phone rang. It was the prison office. He was coming home. I thought I'd be happy. I really did. I cleaned the house, cooked his favorite meal, told the kids, "Your father's coming back." But when he walked in, something inside me froze. His face looked the same, but the man behind it didn't. Prison changes people. It had changed him. He barely smiled. He spoke in short sentences, always tired, always angry at something. The children kept their distance, strangers living under the same roof. He tried to find work. Real estate, he said. He wore nice clothes, made big promises, but the money never came home. And when I asked, he'd snap, "You think it's easy after what I've been through?" So I stopped asking. I just carried on, like I always did. A year later, I found out I was pregnant again. At first I cried, not because I didn't want the baby, but because I was so tired. Tired of starting over. Tired of loving people who didn't see it as love. When the baby came, the house filled with laughter again. For a while. The older children were grown now, finishing school, building their own lives. My eldest daughter got married and moved away. Sometimes she'd call, her voice warm and busy, saying, "Mama, don't worry, I'll send something next month." And she did. But money doesn't fill silence. He passed away a few years later, a heart attack, they said. I remember sitting beside his bed, holding his hand, thinking, this is how it ends, quietly. No apologies, no big last words, just silence between two people who once promised forever. After he passed, the house felt heavier. Not because of grief, but because of everything left unsaid. The children came for the funeral, stood in silence, and left just as quietly. By evening, I was alone again. The walls echoed his voice sometimes, not in words, just in memories. For a while, I managed. I cooked small meals, watered the plants he once ignored, watched people walk past my window. But time moves faster when no one is waiting for you. The days blended into each other. Then, one morning, my body just gave up. I fainted in the kitchen. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed with my eldest daughter standing over me. She said, "Mama, you can't live alone anymore." I wanted to argue, but I didn't. Maybe she was right. So I moved in with my son, the one who had broken his leg years ago. I told myself it would be good to be with family again. I was wrong. They gave me a small room at the back of the house. A single bed, a window with no view. I didn't mind at first, but days turned into weeks and the house stopped feeling like home. My daughter-in-law barely spoke to me. Meals came on a tray, sometimes cold, sometimes late. When I coughed at night, no one came to check. I wasn't angry, just invisible. The boy I'd once carried through fever now avoided eye contact. He said he was busy, tired, stressed. But I saw the guilt behind his eyes. He knew. He just didn't want to feel it. My daughter sent money every month, said, "Take care of Mama." So he did, on paper, not in spirit. I was a responsibility, not a person. One afternoon I asked if we could go to the doctor. My legs had started to swell. He said, "Next week, Mom." I promise next week never came. I started talking to myself after that. Not out of madness, just to hear a human voice. I'd tell the walls stories from my past, the smell of my first home, the sound of my children's laughter, the way my husband once smiled before life hardened him. The walls never interrupted. They listened better than most people I'd known. Sometimes I'd hear the neighbor's TV, laughter from outside, a baby crying, and I'd think, that used to be me. I used to hold babies, cook for crowds, open doors to guests. Now I just wait. For what, I'm not even sure anymore. But here's the strange thing about growing old. You stop expecting anything. No one owes you love, you realize, and somehow that acceptance brings peace. Because when you stop waiting to be seen, you start seeing yourself again. I remember the day I finally told my oldest daughter I couldn't do it anymore. My voice was shaking, not from anger, from exhaustion. I said, "Honey, I don't feel well here. I'm not living, I'm just waiting." There was silence on the phone. Then she said softly, "Don't worry, Mama. I'm coming." She flew in the next week. When she walked through the door, I saw the girl I used to braid hair for. Now she looked like a woman who carried her own world on her shoulders. She hugged me so tight I thought my bones would break. For the first time in years, I felt seen. We packed my things, a few clothes, an old photo frame, a prayer book. My son didn't say much. He just nodded, like he was relieved. Maybe he was. Maybe love, when mixed with guilt, becomes too heavy to hold. My daughter found me another place, with my other son, the younger one. He was renting a small apartment across town. She said, "You'll be happier there, Mama. They'll take care of you." And I wanted to believe her. So I smiled and said, "All right." The new house was different. Smaller rooms, thinner walls, but more laughter at first. The brothers decided to rent a bigger place so I could have a proper room. It sounded like a new beginning, and for a little while it was. But beginnings fade quickly when habits don't change. Within months, the same silence crept in. No one asked if I needed anything. No one noticed when I stopped going outside. My bed grew old before I did. Bugs, rats, peeling paint. I'd tell them, but they were busy, always busy. Sometimes at night I'd hear them laughing in the living room. Friends, TV, music. Life going on without me. And I'd think, maybe this is how stories end. Not with anger, but with quiet neglect. Not because people stop loving you, but because they stop looking. One evening my daughter video called. She said, "Mama, are you okay there?" I wanted to say yes, but the truth fell out before I could stop it. "Sweetheart, I'm tired. It's hard here." Her face changed. She didn't cry, but I could see the ache in her eyes. She said, "Hold on, Mama. I'll figure something out." When the call ended, I sat in the dark, holding the phone against my chest. It was warm, warmer than anything in that room. I closed my eyes and whispered a small prayer. "Please, God, give my children peace. And if I must be forgotten, let me forget the pain of it." I moved again not long after that call. My daughter helped me find a small senior apartment, one of those quiet buildings where everyone keeps to themselves. She decorated the place with things from my old house, a photo frame, my favorite mug, the worn quilt I'd stitched years ago. When she left, she kissed my forehead and said, "You'll be fine here, Mama. You deserve some peace." And for the first time, I believed her. The days are still quiet, but it's a different kind of quiet now. I water the plants on the windowsill. I make tea in the morning and watch the light move across the floor. Sometimes I listen to the radio, the old songs I used to hum while cooking. They remind me that life never really stops. It just changes shape. I don't wait for phone calls anymore. When they come, I'm grateful. When they don't, I light a candle and say a small prayer. I've learned that peace isn't the absence of pain. It's learning to live gently beside it. People ask if I'm angry at my children. I tell them no. They're just busy surviving, the same way I once was. Maybe I wasn't a perfect mother. Maybe they're not perfect children. But love doesn't need to be perfect to be real. Sometimes I think about my younger self, that bright-eyed girl who thought marriage was forever and love was enough. I wish I could hold her hand and whisper, "Take care of yourself too." Because no one teaches women how to keep a little piece of their hearts for themselves. We give everything, our time, our youth, our sleep. And when it's gone, we wonder who we are without it. But I know now. I'm the sum of every meal cooked, every tear hidden, every bedtime story whispered through exhaustion. That's who I am. And that's enough. If you're listening to this, maybe you're where I once was. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're loving people who don't always see it. Don't let that make you smaller. Your kindness still matters. Your love still leaves light in the world, even if no one says thank you. Take pictures. Write letters. Laugh when you can. And when life feels too heavy, remember, you've survived every bad day so far. I'm sitting here tonight, gray hair and tired hands, and I can finally say it. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Because everything I lost taught me how to see what truly stays. The quiet strength inside me, the peace I built from pieces, and the love that never left, even when everyone else did. Does this story remind you of someone? A mother, a grandmother, maybe even yourself? Have you ever loved so deeply that you forgot where you ended and someone else began? Have you ever given everything and realized too late that no one noticed you were fading? Tell me, what would you have done if you were in her place? Would you have stayed? Or learned to let go sooner? If this story found its way to your heart, you're not alone. There are so many of us, quiet givers, silent forgivers, who just wanted to be seen. And if you like stories about ordinary people, real emotions, and the small miracles that keep us going, make sure to follow for more. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that could be yours.